Hey everybody, it's me, it's Alan. We are goreless today once again. Alan Ng, editor-in-chief of Film Threat. Welcome to the live stream. We've got a bunch of movies to talk about. We got Challenger, the Zendaya tennis movie. We've got Boy Kills World with Bill Skarsgård, and I saw Unsung Heroes. It's been a busy week for me. Dante James is about to join me. So we've got a lot to talk about. Hopefully you saw some stuff too. Join us in the chat. Your participation is greatly appreciated. And we've got an interview later today with Ethan Minsker to not only talk about his film Scooter LaForge, Life as Art, but maybe we're going to talk a little bit about the Film Threat documentary, Film Threat Sucks. So stay tuned for that one. We got a packed show today. And oh yeah, here we go. Let's do this. Hey Dante, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going, man? Glad to be here. Guys watching, hello.
You sound tired.
Yeah, man. I was at the theater literally till 1 a.m. almost, man. So I am I am the Walking Dead right now.
I know. It's like if we don't get to an early screening, we're watching all the movies on Thursday night. And I planned it out a little bit better. I saw Challenger on Monday.
I wish I could have. I couldn't make it, so I had to do the double feature yesterday.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get them close enough together, so I was literally at the theater for like hours.
Yeah, and to see Challenger, then Boy Kills World. Is that what you did, or is it the other way around?
Yeah, no. I saw Challengers first, and then Boy Kills World, and got to say, neither one was really worth staying out that late for.
Okay, interesting. All right, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that, but
all right. So, hey, I got 2 news items I want to kind of go over, and then we actually had 3 movies. Unsung Heroes, I think I talked about. You didn't see that, but I did, and I have some thoughts about it. But let's take a look at this little item here. The Russo brothers were interviewed by Games Radar Plus, and exclusive. The Russo brothers aren't so sure about RDJ's recent comments about a potential MCU return. And I'll jump down here. Wow, Emilia Clarke. Let's see. Let me grab down here. Okay, here we go. So we'll start here. We therefore asked the filmmaker duo so RDJ made some comments saying that he's open to returning to the MCU as Iron Man. He told Esquire magazine that he'd be up for the returning of the role, stating, "Happily, it's too integral a part of my DNA. That role chose me. I always say never ever bet against Kevin Feige. It's a losing bet. He's the house. He will always win." And then they talked to Anthony Russo. He explained, "I don't know how they would do it. I don't know what the road to that would be." He laughs. Meanwhile, his brother Joe added, "I mean, we closed the book, so it would be up to them to figure out how to reopen it again." So 2 questions, Dante. What do you think about a potential return of Robert Downey Jr. And what do you think about the Russo's comment that, look, we killed him off. The book is closed.
Okay, but first, I have to say, like, I hear like members of the Red Pill community say that Emilia Clarke is mid, and after looking at that picture right now, like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, there you go.
Are you kidding me? She's mid. She's mid. Guys, if you're part of that Red Pill thing, get out of it, man. It's no good for you. You'll never get a woman. I'm sorry. If this is mid, get the hell out of here. Anyway,
well, I mean, all I'll say is she cleans up well. She does.
She cleans up very. I mean, come on, man. Even at her worst, she's still pretty damn hot. But anyway, let's get back to the question. No, look, I think RDJ is playing politics in a way of he's keeping his options open, right? Just in case things don't work out too well, he can always fall back on Tony Stark. And I get it, right? And honestly, he doesn't want to crap all over the people who really made him or gave him his comeback, right? So I understand him wanting to play nice. I'm more on the Russo side of how would they do it, why would they do it, but we all know how they're going to do it if they do it, right? It's going to be a multiverse thing. It's going to be dumb. It's going to be a really goofy reason to basically destroy the legacy of Tony Stark, right? Because Tony left on the best way possible, right? He saved the universe, and he died. So to do anything that erases that or cheapens that, Marvel might as well just throw it all away at this point, man. Just give it to somebody else. Disney should give Marvel to somebody else if they're going to do all that.
Yeah, I agree. I think RDJ returning is kind of the Hail Mary pass. Yeah, it's kind of the we have nothing left.
Right.
There's no steam in this engine. All right, let's bring him back and let's figure out a way. And because I mean, ultimately what you could do is you could just do a one-off. You could do the Black Widow thing and just tell a story that's unconnected, although they'll figure out a way to connect it to the current MCU. But I don't know. I just feel like, his death was so impactful in Endgame. We could argue whether it was the right choice to make, but it was a good death.
But it was a good death. It was it was the best death for that character.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like I think it just comes down to look. Let's be fair. I think you're right. He's not burning any bridges here,
right?
And I'm certainly sure that the money would be pretty good if he came back. And so I'm sure it's all speculation. But I guess it gets into this idea of why is this story even out? Is it to because I can kind of see the story blossoming amongst the fans, the MCU fans. What's going to happen is going to happen, and kind of forcing Marvel's hand to kind of do something about it. It's the manifesting. If you've been watching Velma, we're talking about manifesting here. Look, I'd be willing to come back. Well, I'm going to manifest it, and it's got to happen. And I just feel like sometimes you have to resist those kind of temptations.
Look, there is a chance that we might see him in Wolverine and Deadpool, like as a cameo, and I have no problem with something like that because it's all tongue in cheek, it's all funny. If he comes back, it's probably going to be for some small comedic part, and I'm okay with that because it's Deadpool, right? Like it's not really canon. Well, I don't know about the movie, but for the most part, it's loosely canon with Deadpool, right? So if he came back for like a scene in Deadpool, I'd be like, okay, that was funny, that was cool. But I don't want to see RDJ come back. Other than that, I don't want to see another Iron Man movie with him. I don't want to see him part of the Avengers. I don't want to see any of that because he died the perfect death. We don't need him back. I mean, Disney needs a lot of things. Marvel needs a lot of things, but right now they don't need him back.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see. Hey, I'm putting a note in the private chat. Oh shoot! I don't think that'll. Hold on one second. Sorry. There we go. Down. Okay. There we go. Yeah, I need some help here. Okay. Let's move on to the second story, and it is actually you posted this. I found this on your Twitter. But Jessica Lange says corporate profit is overwhelming Hollywood, and so much of the industry now is not about the creative process. Let's talk about this. Jessica Lange spoke critically of present-day Hollywood during a recent interview with Vulture, saying there should be a law against it. When the topic came up about Warner Brothers Discovery axing already shot movies like Batgirl and Coyote versus Acme for tax write-off purposes, the topic became a launching pad for some of Lange's wider criticisms of today's entertainment industry. We're living in a corporate world, and it certainly has rolled over into the film industry, Lange says. So much of the industry now is not about the creative process. Obviously, this is not across the board, but there are many instances where I feel like the artistic impulse is overwhelmed by the corporate profit. You look at some of the best films of the past year. What do they have in common? They're not from America. My favorite was Anatomy of a Fall. how often do we get to see films like that? Where's the ambiguity of things never sewn up? Yeah, she liked Anatomy of Fall. We liked Godzilla -1. Also not from America. Yeah, I mean, there's two things here. The first is money over art, and she points out Batgirl and Coyote versus Acme, which I find kind of interesting because I hear a lot of bad things about Batgirl and I hear a lot of good things about Coyote versus Acme. What do you think? Is Hollywood too much money focused and less art focused? Do you think, like I said, these two films are kind of the extremes in terms of what Hollywood had canceled recently?
Well, I mean, let's be honest here, man. Hollywood has always been money focused, okay? Like, but there was just this nice little time where money and art kind of blended together, right? But at this point, they're not even trying anymore, right? It's all look. We're living in a time where studios are cannibalizing each other, right? At some point, there's only going to be like 2 or 3 major studios, and that's it. I think. Look, Jessica Lange is a legend. She's not some fly by night actress. She's been around since forever, and she's still working to this day. By the way, it has to be surreal to be like someone in the industry that long to see what it's becoming right now, because it is kind of a weird time, man. It's a time where we have way more, or actors have way more opportunities for jobs than they've ever had, right? Because of streaming, because of movies, because of everything else. They have a lot more opportunity, but the problem is that the money is drying up. So I, I Hollywood at this point isn't even trying to make good product. They're just trying to find a way to hold on to their money. And if that means tax write-offs like Acme or Batgirl, then that's what they're going to do. And we all know they're not above it.
Yeah, and then the second part here, the idea that I, that the best movies now are coming coming overseas. They're not from America. And we brought up Godzilla -1. I could tell you a whole lot of movies not from America. Seeming coming from Korea. Long ago we had Parasite. And I think for me, the reason I think the best movies are not coming out of America is because they're not hung up on American politics. They're not hung up on American cultural politics.
Well, and that's the part that she failed to mention, is that Hollywood has been hijacked, right, by activists, by people with alternative intentions, right? We already seen this. The whole DEI thing is definitely killing a big part of Hollywood right now, and I hate to quote Trump on this, but we're not getting our best people in Hollywood. We're just not, man. We're not getting the best people, and it's kind of sad to see. And I think this purge needs to happen, and I think for the sake of not just the audience, but even actors and crew in Hollywood, I think Hollywood needs to fall so hard that there's a reset, right, and they go back to just entertainment. Right? Not preaching messages, just entertaining the public.
Yeah. And I'll tease Monday on Versus. Is Hollywood dying? That's going to be our subject, and we're going to kind of go deeper into this, because I think Hollywood is dying, not just at the box office, not just creatively, but on many different levels. And quite frankly, I think the thing we're going to debate is whether this is a good thing. And just how hard, because it's one of those. The question to me is, if Hollywood falls hard, is it going to destroy the entire industry, or is it going to be like a forest fire where you're going to see a barren wasteland, but you're going to see sprouts of life coming out from surprising sources? So that's what we're going to talk about Monday. Let's go over to the chat, and then we'll get into our movie reviews here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let me see. From Lord Thoth. Modding for us today. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Sign up as a member. Join us on Discord and Rumble. Yes, we're doing quite well on Rumble today. I'm also going to skip some of the Boy Meets World, Boy Kills World questions. Believe me, there's a connection between the two. So let's go to Patrick Lemire. The real enemy is the franchise. The real enemy is the franchise. It's a model that doesn't allow the smartest thing possible, which would have been pause for the best part of a decade and then starting over. So Patrick's saying, yeah, they should have just paused after Endgame, waited a couple years and then restarted. Instead, what they did was not only did they not pause, they thought they could build some momentum with Spider-Man, with Black Widow, and then they brought in a whole bunch of characters that basically ancillary characters from the Marvel universe. The Eternals, Shang-Chi, which I'll say is probably the best of Phase 4 and 5.
Well, and let's not forget the Disney Plus shows really kind of cheapened the brand as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was like, it's weird because before Disney, you had Paramount running things over with Marvel Studios. Kevin Feige was there. There was a direction going on. There was an idea of some Endgame that ended with Endgame, and then after that, there was no idea. I think they're just throwing things out there to see what sticks, and kind of hoping this whole multiverse thing would pay off, which it isn't.
Well, the saddest thing is that it could have paid off so well, man, because they had a 10-year run. If they had just taken a 2-year break, they could have probably have had another 10-year run if they just, stopped and really planned things out. And honestly, just quit BSing and give the people what they wanted. Everyone after Endgame wanted X-Men and Fantastic Four. We all know that. And instead, they gave us Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
And I like the actress a lot, but come on, man, that was some BS.
Yeah. And let's be real, they're going to screw it up.
Yeah.
All right. Let me, sorry, I'm doing prep for our next segment. And and of course, things fall apart on me. Let's move on to from AD Ellis on Rumble. If the MCU can't survive without Tony Stark, then it doesn't deserve to exist. I think that's the big question, is the fact that, we've been talking about they strayed away from the OG Avengers. They killed off Captain America, they killed off Iron Man. Hulk has been emasculated basically, and Thor is aimlessly wandering the universe, not knowing where to go next.
Okay, but here's the thing: I'm fine with that, right? Like if they would have gave us a whole new Avengers team with, like, say, Black Knight and Simon Williams, just all these other Avengers, Tigra, all these other Avengers that we're familiar with, right? All they had to do was take a break. Let the Avengers be the Avengers. Let the other characters be their own characters, man. Not every Marvel character has to be an Avenger, right? And that's kind of what the MCU has done. It's like they've taken every Marvel character, is like, hey, you're an Avenger, you're an Avenger, you're an Avenger. It's like, no, they don't all have to be Avengers, man. They could just be within that universe together, but the Avengers should just be the Avengers, man.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen so many variations of Avengers in the comics that they could have went with, right? She-Hulk could have been an Avenger.
Yeah, but see, I'm starting to kind of fall into the DC model where it's just replay Batman over and over again, replay Superman over and over again. Because quite frankly, the world knows who Superman and Batman is. The world knows who Captain America is, who Hulk is, who Spider-Man is. And maybe you just got to keep playing those hits constantly and bring out your eventual, Black Adam or Blue Beetle, because how well those did at the box office. And they're not going to make as much money as the popular titles, but if you budget it right, you can actually make money with these smaller titles. And
I totally get that, man. But what I'm saying is, like, with the Avengers, obviously, you keep a core 3 or 4, right? That everyone knows, but that gives you opportunity now to bring in other Avengers that maybe comic book fans know, but the public doesn't, and you ease them into the MCU instead of just giving every random their own movie or their own Disney Plus show. You know what I mean? Like, some comic fans know, sure, but the public probably not. But that's what they did, is that they banked on all these characters that 90% of the public doesn't know about.
Yeah. Well, the Disney Plus shows could have definitely built up new characters.
Yes.
But they're so inept, they don't know how to tell those stories.
They gave us Echo.
Yeah. Yeah, or when Ms. Marvel finally came to the Marvels, and when Photon finally came to the Marvels, no one knew who they were because they just weren't built up right.
Nope.
All right.
And again, I like that actress a lot, but no, it was just awful.
Yeah. All right, Patrick Lemire, is this franchise Desperation Friday? Maybe Tony Stark / RDJ is coming back. Maybe George Lucas is coming back. Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of rumors out there right now.
Yeah, and who's putting out these rumors? Why
Good
are
question.
I part of me feels like the studio's doing it, but at the same time, the studios are definitely desperate, and it's these stories that come out and that we fall for it. We talk about it for 20 minutes now. So yeah, good job.
We fall for it, but we definitely talk about it.
Yeah. The nerd far away. Hollywood needs to go back to telling good stories, but I don't think they will. I think all these new studios popping up will take us back to good movies. Yeah. I mean, the salvation comes from these smaller studios, from Lionsgate. Lionsgate is putting out a lot of stuff. We're going to review one today.
A24.
Yeah, A24. Actually, Lionsgate has 2 movies out this week.
Wow.
And yeah, I believe that's where it's going to come from. Lionsgate and A24 are going to be, the studios that brings the return of the $30 million budget movie. And then you're going to see the rise of the small budget, the $10 to $15 million movies.
Because I say most of their movies have made profit, right?
Mm-hmm. I think so. Yeah, I mean, I haven't studied this greatly, but from my impression is that Lionsgate, they may not make profit in the theater, but they definitely kind of make it on the streaming side once it's played out in the theaters. All right, and then finally, All's Well That Ends Well has become a YouTube member. Welcome. Join us in the chat. Join us on Discord. Go to that member tab. We got special videos there. And yeah, let's get into movie reviews. We're gonna talk about the movie you didn't see. This is one of those where I just kind of fell into it because I was bored on Wednesday and decided I need to see it. But the movie is Unsung Hero. Look, okay, we're starting with this one because it's the Christian faith-based movie. This is the story of the Longbone family. Yes, that's right. Their name is the Longbone family. The father is here. Yeah, the father, David, is a Christian music promoter in Australia. He had a big hit. He had a big major tour success with Stryper coming to Australia. And when he's given the choice between going with a smaller band known as DeGarmo and Key, he decides no, he's going to go shoot for the stars and go for Amy Grant. And when the Australian economy tanks, he loses about $500,000 on the failed Amy Grant tour of Australia. So he decides to pack up his family of 6 to go to America to promote Carmen. I know I'm throwing names out of Christian artists that you probably have never heard of, but I will guarantee
you. This is a true story?
What? Yeah, this is a true story. I will guarantee you that when I was a Christian and following Christian music, this is my wheelhouse because I know Stryper, I know DeGarmo and Key, and I know Carmen. And so he goes to America to be the promoter for Carmen, but Carmen decides to go in a different direction. And now the Longbone family has moved to Nashville, all 7 of them. They live in a house they can't afford. There's no furniture. They barely have any food. And now they have to figure out how to survive. And survive they do. Essentially, they plug into the local church. They see they're in need, and the church comes along and helps them out. And then they realize that one of their daughters, Rebecca, is a star. And the movie is about now figuring out a way to A, survive as a family. B, David has to swallow his pride because he's basically doing lawns and housekeeping at this point. And now he has a daughter who's incredibly talented. And that daughter, if you're into the Christian music scene, is Rebecca St. James. Who is a big star that I've never heard of because I kind of dropped out of Christian music at this time. So, look, I'll say this. I love this movie. I I don't generally like faith-based movies because they're kind of they're kind of like they don't go dark enough. And not to say that this movie goes dark at all, but um, this movie is a true story. It's about this family. It's about a family of faith who basically they arrive in Nashville with nothing, and they realize that prayer is the only thing that's going to get them through. And through prayer, they're able to, God is able to bring them the things they need, and ultimately become, the successful touring family who supports not only their daughter Rebecca St. James, but for King and Country, I guess that's the two boys, and start their career as well. And I will say this: the reason I like this movie is because I identify with it. There was life is hard, especially for me in 2008 with the housing crash. Life got really hard, and the only thing that I had to rely on was God and the church and my family, and that's the same thing that happens here. And so it is a well-told story. It's a well-done story in terms of the quality of it. Feels cinematic. It's not hokey, at least in my opinion. It's not as hokey as I find Christian faith-based movies to be. And so I enjoyed this a whole lot. So Dante, you have any interest in seeing this movie?
I mean, I obviously, anyone who knows me knows I'm big into Christian rock, and no, I'm kidding. I'm absolutely not. But
You're not a striper. You were not.
I think the last faith-based movie I saw was Saved with Mandy Moore and Jenna Malone and Macaulay Culkin. I mean, I wouldn't call it faith-based
movie,
but it's it was the closest to like what Christian life is like, as far as like hypocrisy and people who are really trying to live the life and that whole thing. And look, man, I think there's a market for these movies, and even though it might not be my kind of movie, I think there are a bunch of Christians who would probably be very grateful to have this kind of movie out right now, because let's be real, man, if you're like a real like Christian, right? Sometimes the movies, like, there's not like a lot to go on, right? Like I have to imagine if you were like a really hardcore Christian, you don't want to see a movie with a bunch of sex scenes or gratuitous violence, right? And that whole thing. And then there's the whole like LGBT part of Hollywood that's everywhere now in movies and TV shows. So for a hardcore Christian, there's not a lot. So I assume a movie like this will probably do pretty well within that community. You know what I mean? I mean, is it going to make big box office numbers? Absolutely not. But
actually, the faith-based film industry is quite strong. It's not the Iron Man audience, it's not the general audience, but in terms of, again, making money is about knowing your audience, knowing the potential ticket sales you're going to get in, and then making a movie budgeted in a way that can actually turn a profit. Look, I'll say a couple things about what you said. Saved is one of my favorite movies. Because at that time, Saved was kind of the battle I had with the church at the time. I knew a lot of these legalistic Christians.
Yeah.
And I just fought like crazy with them, because it's just like, where are all these rules you're coming up with? And especially the charismatic movement, I've had issues with, not because of the charismatic end of it, but because of the outgrowth and the way the church treated people as a result of that.
Yeah, no, I was part of the same thing back when I was, I guess a believer, you could say. I got caught up in the charismatic part of it, and the church was growing pretty fast. I was a part of, but I realized why it was growing so fast, because it was like these very rigid, almost sales approachy, tactics of the church, right?
Yeah.
So,
and let's just say that not all churches would like that.
No, I'm just saying what I was a part of. Not every church.
I certainly was a part of those churches as well. I mean, it took my wife and I a very long time to find the church that we're at now, and a lot of it had to do with the issues of money. And ironically, we're at one of the largest churches in America. But the issue was money. The issue was about integrity of the staff, of the pastors.
Yeah.
And it took us a long time to feel comfortable with a leader who in our opinion, felt like that they had integrity and
Right.
cared less about the money and more about the ministry. And the other movie I'll turn people onto is Jesus Music. It's a documentary about contemporary Christian music. Look, when I became a Christian, I was all about contemporary Christian music. Amy Grant, Michael W. Piper, Petra, Brian Duncan. I could go down. Steve Taylor, and Daniel.
I only know Amy Grant, and that's because she got real mainstream. But all those other people you mentioned, don't even know.
Yeah, no, Amy Grant. I saw Amy Grant. She came to LA 3 times. I saw her all 3 times. I mentioned DeGarmo and Key. I've been to at least 5 DeGarmo and Key concerts. There was that Jesus movement that was going on, and Jesus Music kind of documented the history of contemporary Christian music, the good and the bad, because contemporary Christian music ended in a very bad way around the DC Talk era.
Oh,
And,
DC Talk. Okay, I do remember that name as well. That was the big one.
Yeah,
they were huge actually for a while.
But it was weird because the history of contemporary Christian music kind of mirrored my history as a Christian, and because I was deep into it early on, and then as the years went on, the veil kind of dropped, and you saw that, there was, contemporary Christian was about the money, about these contracts these artists had to sign. And it was also about, the fact that, a lot of these artists, they had a image to uphold that they just couldn't uphold because, hell, we're all sinners, and we fall, and the way we treat the fallen is just as bad as the way we treat sinners.
Oh man, like honestly, this topic could be a whole nother show because I mean, I have stories just like that, man. Like, God, man, like there was a time when, I was, quote unquote, sold out for Jesus, man, and did the whole thing, and but I started seeing the cracks, and obviously, as a Christian, we're told to separate the sin from the sinner. We have to realize that people are imperfect, but the word of God is not. Sorry, that people are imperfect, but the word of God is perfect, and we were taught that, and we believe that, but it's really hard when you're walking in that movement to see so many people not walking it, right? Like it gets a little discouraging, right? To the point where you're like, am I even following the right thing? And that's a whole nother topic, but it's a thing, and I'd like to see more of that in Christian movies, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Getting back to Unsung Hero here, the reason I just resonated with this movie so much is because this is not a perfect family. The idea of going out in faith, this is a very, no one believed they could have survived. The only person who believed that they could survive was David's father, who was played by Terry O'Quinn from Lost, by the way.
Oh wow, okay.
And he dons an Australian accent, and but it was, that's the thing, is life is difficult, and I think one of the issues I've had with the church at the time was, is that they equated prosperity with faith. They equated the fact that if life wasn't going good for you, your faith wasn't strong, and to realize that no, even Job had a strong faith and he went through hell, and that we do the same things. And it's not about judging others and saying casting judgment because bad things are happening. It's about the church coming together and surrounding those who are having hard times and lifting them up, so that they can then move on to the next family that comes along that is having hard times and moving up. That's kind of what I've always understood the church to be.
So would you recommend the movie?
I absolutely would recommend the movie. I would say if you're curious about Christianity, this is a good movie to watch. If you've struggled with Christianity, this is a good movie to watch. And it's, I think my biggest issue with Christian movies is that, it always ends with a nice tidy bow, or that I'll read this one scripture to you and that will solve all your problems. And you realize it's much bigger than that. And it's not about, it's as much as it is about the Bible, it's really about the church coming together and supporting those. All right. So let's get to your comments there. I know people I'm reading some of the comments like, cut the religious talk. Uh, so what? Believe me, we'll get to the murders. We'll get to the homoerotic stories in just a moment. From Big Black Dog, where's my agnostic-based movie? That's right. The agnostics are not getting their fair shake here.
Right.
From Rhino Helix, I don't know. I don't follow Christian music, and I have heard, but I have heard For King and Country. I don't know For King and Country. Again, that's kind of when I dropped out. The Nerd Far Away. Maybe I should see Unsung Hero. Sometimes it seems like it's never going to get better. I keep praying though. Yeah, this is a good movie for now. It's tough times for everyone, and it just I kind of miss that time when when Christians liked each other. And, yeah, my kingdom for a film. The problem I see with Christian films like this are the performances, the poor sound design, Foley, static shots that aren't interesting, and being artistic when it doesn't serve the story. I will tell you, the quality of this movie is excellent. They put money into it, and they put good people behind it. Should I mention that Candace Cameron Bure is behind it? Is one of the executive producers.
I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah, and what's funny is there's a cartoon put out by before it. There's a short cartoon before it put out by Greg Laurie over at Harvest over in Ontario, over in the Inland Empire, and I'm like, that wasn't a good sign for me. It's a very simplistic gospel message. So to each their own. Mike MC1, Cabrini was the last good Christian movie I saw. Yeah, it's from Angel Studios. We talked about that. All's Well That Ends Well. Film Threat. Fathom Events is making a killing with these type of films. Yeah, I mean, Fathom Events, it's a steady stream of faith-based movies. A lot of documentaries worth checking out if that's what you're into. From Rumble, Caveat Ties for $2. I was a big Rebecca St. James guy, just like every single Christian guy back in those days. Yeah, I'm too old for Rebecca St. James, but her real name is Rebecca Longbone. And then when she got famous, it was like, we need to change your name, and it's in the movie. Yeah, but Longbone's not a good Christian name. All right. Bill S. Preston, Esquire. Is there a Tyler Perry-like figure on the production side of Christian films? The thing is Christian films don't get the promotion that a Tyler Perry might get.
Right.
Christian movies, you'll never see them in Variety. You'll never see the stars in Variety or Hollywood Reporter. They're not being interviewed. But it's one of those where it is just this untapped market, and it's a very popular market. And for Christians to be able to go to the theaters and see a good, wholesome movie with a good message, look, the money's there, and even bad movies make a lot of money. I don't know if you ever saw the movie The Resurrection of Gavin Stone, but that's a very Christian movie. It stars Brett Dalton, who is in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., has Shawn Michaels in it. That movie was produced by WWE and
Really?
Blumhouse, because both of that was their foray into Christian faith-based movies. I don't think it did well enough. It did ultimately get on HBO, but Blumhouse and WWE making a Christian movie, that's the one. All right. From Patrick Lemire, it was a huge controversy when Amy Grant got divorced. Turned out her marriage was a facade, and she took a lot of criticisms when she married Vince Gill. They've been together for 25 years. Yeah, that was kind of the tail end when that veil was lifted, when what they did to Amy Grant. It wasn't that their marriage was a facade with Gary Chapman, her first husband. It was that Gary Chapman had a severe drug and alcohol problem. And it just got to the point where they had to divorce. And their thing, okay.
But what's weird about that too,
divorce is not a subject I want to get into, but I can get into.
Okay, but what's weird about that was, like, this happened like in the 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by then, divorce was pretty commonplace. Like, it's not like she got divorced in the 50s, where there's a stigma, to being divorced. She got divorced in the 90s, and it was weird that people made that much of an issue about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll say this: at that time, divorce was common, but from the evangelicals, it was like, look at what the sinners are doing; they're getting divorced. and, and, you can't get divorced except for adultery. And then Amy Grant goes and gets divorced and just kind of tanks her Christian music career at that point.
Right.
And let's not also bring out the fact that Amy Grant was the first crossover star into secular music, and that wasn't received well at all either. With her leopard print jacket.
Right. The scandal.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we're gonna get to other movies real quick. So I got 3 more comments. My old college roommate used to be into Christian rock music. We would call into college rock radio stations and request the bands. They never heard of them. Yeah, I know. We used to have a Christian radio station here in Orange County, KYMS, and that is now a Korean talk show station. Mike MC Wong, I prefer Marvel Talk. Yeah, I understand. Christopher Moonlight Production. The problem with a lot of Christian movies is that they're made by people who don't know how to make movies. And so they make sermons trying to pass as movies. Absolutely. That was a lot of Christian movies in the day. And then from CD Stein 69, Ordinary Angels was a good movie with a Christian message, but wasn't overtly Christian. Absolutely. All right, let's move on to our next topic because I know all of you are begging it, and here we go. Let's pivot
now. Say my name.
You're Chris Gore.
You're goddamn right.
Yeah, Chris Gore is undeniable. By the way, I'll be seeing Chris Gore on Monday. And let's just say that he is coming back sooner than later. We just don't have a firm date, but Chris is doing well. He's rehabbing well. And so thoughts and prayers. Okay, let's move on to our next movie here. This is the fun one. Talk about it. Here's the better layout. Let's talk about Challengers.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is stars Zendaya, also stars sorry, give me a second here. Stars Zendaya, stars Josh O'Connor as Patrick Zwig, and also stars Mike Feist. I want to say that.
Yeah, I can't pronounce his name either.
Yeah, he's from West Side Story. All right, so it's about Patrick and Art, who are best friends from childhood. They played tennis together. They worked their way up the tennis rankings, and while in Stanford, they meet Tashi, played by Zendaya, who rocks their world. Both of them fall in love with her, and the love triangle begins. A lot of sex, a lot of making out, a see-through bra. This movie's an interesting one. Let's just say that Art and Tashi ultimately get married. Art has become a professional tennis player, while Tashi has suffered a severe knee injury that took her out because she was going to be basically the next Serena Williams. So now she's kind of living her career through her husband, Art. But he is getting tired of the tour. He's tired of the fact that he hasn't won the big one yet. That doesn't quite sit well with Tashi. And then there's best friend Patrick, who she had a relationship at one time, who is back in their lives, creating havoc within this marriage. It is a love triangle. It is it's a despicable love triangle. Dante, what did you think of Challengers?
Oh man, there's just so much going through my head right now about this movie because I'm watching it, and the only the resounding thing, the thing that carried through the whole film was that, number one, Zendaya's character was a horrible person.
Mm-hmm.
She was a horrible person, but also the way they sold this movie, the way they pitched this movie, really was a little deceitful in a way of it's there's a love triangle and that whole thing, but there was more chemistry between the two guys than with Zendaya and any of the guys in the movie.
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of how it's almost like maybe that's the underlying theme was that these two guys were meant to be together, and she got in the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because even she said she didn't want to be a homewrecker, right? Meaning with their friendship. And then there's a point in the film where the guys go years without talking to each other because she chose one of them, right? So there's this whole underlying thing of, these two guys should have been together and not her and, the other dude. It was just a weird movie for me, man. Like in every sort of way, like even the way it ended, which I'm not going to get into because it's spoilers, but for those who do want to see this tripe. But I just feel like it was pitched as one movie and what we got was just something really stupid.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the feeling I got coming out of this movie. I was torn between liking this movie and really hating this movie. And I began wrestling for a day or two about would I ever recommend this movie? And I think ultimately I came to know I can't. But I'll describe it this way. At the end, the ending, the way it ended, I thought was fascinating. I thought it was intriguing. It really,
I hated the way that ended, man.
Well, I'm talking about the very last moment. But getting to that point, it felt very dirty. Getting to that moment. Yeah. There's just tone that kind of carries itself throughout the entire film, and one of it is homoerotic. Every time you saw Patrick and Art in a deep conversation, it felt very homoerotic.
Yes.
And I would tell you the way it was shot is that the two faces are so close to each other they could almost be kissing. In fact, there is a moment where they are kissing, and during the menage a trois scene. And
I'm going to get into that scene.
Yeah. So two things here. I'll tell you what I appreciate about this movie. As an improviser, as a guy who does improv a lot, there's a game we play called Timeline, where we take an event, and in the movie here, the event is the tennis match between Art and Patrick. The one that's the tennis match that's going to launch either careers into the next level. That's the event, and then they play with time. They go back 5, 6, 8 years. They go back 3 years. They go back a couple hours. They go back and forth in time, and in each scene they kind of reveal the nature about that. I kind of appreciated that kind of storytelling. I thought it was done well.
It was done well. It was done very well.
Yeah, playing with time. This is a great movie to kind of study that how to do it. The other thing is this movie is all about status. In improv, you can't have two characters with the same status. Otherwise, you have a boring scene. You have to have one who's dominant and one who's not dominant. Can't think of the other term right now. But it's about who has higher status, who has lower status. And in each scene, you take all three characters and you're constantly shifting them in terms of, in Tashi has more dominance over Patrick. But by the end of the scene, that switches. The same thing with Art and Patrick, and vice versa. And so every scene is about just shifting status between the characters, and I found that fascinating. But again, getting to that point and getting through it, it was just like, again, it was. I'll call it homoerotic. I also call it the fact that all of these characters are unlikable. All these characters are despicable. And sometimes it's just hard to watch a movie where you have characters that you just dislike and then have to sit through 2 hours of it.
Yeah.
And that was my problem.
Nobody to root for in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, if you had and so part of me was like, I really appreciate the structure and the storytelling. But at the same time, I just hate these characters. And we could talk about the ending. There's an ending. There's foreshadowing always in movies. There's foreshadowing with the tennis ball on the racket. Dante, you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
I knew I knew they were going to return to that foreshadowing, that plot device, but it took them 10 minutes to do it, and I'm like waiting for it to happen, and I'm waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and it finally happened. And so this is just this whole movie to me is just a mixed bag of bad storytelling, hidden under a great story structure and a great plot device. And ultimately, as much as I appreciated the movie, I can't recommend the movie.
Yeah, look, I mean, I did appreciate the structure for sure. I thought it was very well done, better than most films I've seen that have tried to do that. The problem for me is just like by the end of it, man, I walked away feeling like angry. I saw this movie in a way, like I felt like I could have watched this on streaming. I could have watched this at home, like and been doing other things while it played in the background. Like I don't know, like there was just something that for me didn't resonate, and and it's not because it was like gay coded, because let's be honest, it was very gay coded.
Mhm.
It wasn't because of that, because I've seen plenty of movies that have gay folks in it, and they're good movies, they're great movies, but this was just so it was so non-committal for me, man. Right? Like I said, there was more chemistry with the guys than with Zendaya, right? And it felt like they went out of their way for her not to be a part of the sexual part of this movie.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Even
Yeah.
though the trailers promoted it like, see, and that's the thing. The trailer promoted it like, oh, there's going to be this huge, sex scene between Zendaya and two guys, right? Like that's all anyone ever talked about when they talked about this movie Challengers, right? By the way, that scene never happens. It never happened. They don't have a threesome together. I mean, not really. They kiss. They kiss. That's it. And then she leaves. Right? Like they don't actually do the thing, right? So look, if you're
Right.
going to promote this movie like this, then you better just commit, man. The thing that that bugs me honestly is like we saw so much male ass and genitals, right, in this film, but yeah, the lead character who's supposed to be the seductress of these two guys, no, she's clothed through the whole film, right?
Well, see-through bra. Let's just
Well, let's be real here. She was clothed. And I'm like, where's the commitment, man? What happened to the Kate Winslets of the world who would go there, right? Like Sydney Sweeney, look, Euphoria with Zendaya, right? Sydney Sweeney's the only actress in that show about sex that ever gets naked. She's the only one out of a whole crew of actresses, right? But guarantee you watch Euphoria, you're going to see a bunch of man ass, a bunch of, you know,
ding dongs. Yeah.
a bunch of ding dongs, a bunch, you're gonna see everything from men, but you're not. But Sydney Sweeney's the only chick in the series that commits, right? And that was my
Mhm.
problem with this film too, was the fact that look, if Zendaya's gonna have this movie where there's this mature subject matter, right? Then commit to it, man. Like go there. Don't just keep don't try to keep playing the Disney princess in a film about threesomes.
I got to show you this. This is we're gonna look at Rotten Tomatoes for Challengers. Rotten Tomatoes Challengers is 90% certified fresh.
By who?
Uh, by let's see, 183 reviews. So that means if I do my math right, there are about 36 reviews or 40, 36 reviews roughly that were bad out of the 108. 150 critics like this movie.
Of course
With
they
its trio of outstanding performers volleying their star power back and forth without ever dropping the ball, Challengers is a kinetic, sexy romp. Let me see. The juxtaposition of sequences throughout the Reznor and Ross score absolutely blew my doors off. The acting here was quite good. Quite good. What? Quite good, mate. And I like the narrative theming being purposeful, disjointed, excellent. Ah, this guy's all over the place. Okay, what did you think of the score, by the way? Trent Reznor and
So it doesn't surprise me,
Mhm.
right? I have a feeling like a lot of people within, especially the LGBT community, is going to love this film for obvious reasons, because, like you said, it's very homoerotic, right?
Mhm.
Um, I think it's look, man. We've all learned at this point that critic scores for Rotten Tomatoes don't mean anything anymore. I mean, like even when my reviews would show up on Rotten Tomatoes, I got to the point where I'm like, I don't care because like it's almost irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to be the lone voice among all these shills who who are like giving these movies great reviews because it's something in it for them.
Yeah.
I just don't trust the reviews. I don't trust that review. I know. So look, there are some people who are going to genuinely like it. I'm not saying that they're not, because like you said, there are things about the movie to like.
Mhm.
It is well done. It is a well done movie. It's just not intriguing enough.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder. Because after seeing the movie, and then I went to Rotten Tomatoes, and it was at 89% when I saw it. I'm like, sometimes I just feel like critics are. This just feels like a virtue signal to me from critics that
Yeah.
you have to like this movie because of its subject matter, because of the LGBT themes behind it. And I don't know what it is, but for some reason, critics really like dark movies. This is a very dark movie full of despicable people, and for some reason we have to like that. And it's not that you couldn't make a movie like this, but it's all about the storytelling and how well you are at it. And I just felt like it was just the despicable ooze was just heaped on so much that I don't know, I just couldn't get into it, and I couldn't,
Well, you have a movie where
appreciate the art of it.
you have a movie where Zendaya is playing the other woman to this male couple, right? Because that's basically what she was. She was the other woman, and she's the one who broke up this happy home, right?
Yeah.
I look. I'm not going to get into all the agenda stuff, but we all know that for Hollywood, like a story about two men in love is a big deal, and so those scores are not surprising at all, because
Yeah.
that's what this movie was. That's what this movie was. It was a movie about two men in love.
Yep. All right. So final verdict.
Absolutely not. Do not watch this movie.
Yeah. I know. I was so torn, and ultimately it's I can't recommend it. I'd love look. I can't recommend it, but if you see it, I'd love to talk to you about it. That's kind of how my feeling is about this. That's how I kind of
or at least wait till it comes on streaming and watch it there, because you got like an hour or two to kill. But don't watch it in the theater.
All right, let's get to your comments here. Brock Samsonite, I prefer love trapezoids. Yeah, who doesn't? From Bill S. Preston Esquire, Zendaya Coleman has such a resting batch face, but when she smiles, I think it's pretty. Yeah, she's an interesting force in this movie. I think you're right. I think the chemistry between her and the other two were not there, but was it supposed to be there? And also, she, in terms of the cast of the three, she outshines the other two significantly.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think I feel like there was a struggle to kind of keep up with her, and maybe that was on purpose. See, this is me thinking about this movie again. I have so many questions, and it just goes back and forth. Bill S. Preston also says, Culture Casino said the last minute of the movie was the only part worth watching. Yeah, absolutely. But everything we had to go to get there, all the
it's absolutely not worth getting there.
Yeah, I could tell you just watch the last 10 seconds of the movie, but it wouldn't make sense unless you saw the 2 hours of foreshadowing that led up to it. In the tagline, is the tagline 4 balls in her court?
Should have been.
Bravo, very good. Patrick Lemire, Wimbledon. All right. From CD Stein 69, dominant and submissive. There you go. That's what I was looking for. From Big Black Dog, from Christian talk to tennis homoeroticism. Yeah, we look, diversity. From Big Black Dog again, Patrick and Art. That doesn't sound gay at all.
Well, even the guy who was calling the matches, they made sure to go out of their way to show you that he is gay. Like just a random guy calling the match, right? Like they went out of their way to show that he was gay.
I know it was. I'm like, this is just the other thing about this 90% is to criticize it. I think comes off as homophobic.
But look, it's not. We've seen plenty of movies with those tones, right? That were done so much better. So I'm just calling out how ridiculous this movie is in the way of the guy calling the tennis match. Like they have to make sure you knew he was gay. I'm like, why? He's irrelevant. He's the guy calling the tennis match.
Yeah. Well, my first thought was, wow, this is a very odd female voice, and then then they show you the announcer, and I'm like, of course it is. Of course they did this, and the thing is it is just so it is shoveled on. It is
heavy-handed,
so sappy. It is so thick. The LGBT elements to this, that it was like it felt oppressive at times, and
no, but you're right. It's true. I mean, that's how it felt.
Mm-hmm. All right, Patrick Lemire. Zendaya is the successful version of the critic gaslighting. They are trying that they were trying with Jonathan Majors. Yeah, that they were. I think your point is that they were trying to push Jonathan Majors the same way that they've been pushing Zendaya, and I don't disagree with that. From Rumble 80 Ellis 24, I'm going to watch a gay romance film from Luca Guadagnino. I'd rather put on Call Me by Your Name. At least the characters in there were tolerable humans. Did you see Call Me by?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
It was a much better movie.
Yeah, I believe he also did Luca, and I think people wanted to see the gay themes in Luca, but they were sorely disappointed it wasn't there. All right, let's pivot. Here we go. There's so much work to do, so many buttons to click in order to pivot in this thing.
Yo, Adrian! I did it!
Okay, let me drop this. Let me just start clicking buttons like crazy. Of course, I clicked the wrong button. But we are moving on to the big movie of the weekend, and it is Boy Kills World. Let me see. So, Dante, if you give us the quick story on this one while I.
Okay, so I'm pretty mixed on this one myself. The story is basically it's a revenge movie. Boy loses his family. He finds this weird Asian guy who trains him for no good reason, really. Well, I mean, you find out at the end why, but just as you're watching it, you have no idea why this weird Asian guy took in this little white boy. But anyway, trains his kid. The kid is he mute or is he deaf? Like I couldn't remember.
He's both.
He's both.
They cut out his tongue and they burned his eardrums.
He burned his ear. That's right. And but then he acts and responds in the movie like he does hear things, which is weird, man. There's a lot of inconsistencies with this movie. The action scenes were fun, but again, the story is just basically kid grows up and gets revenge on the people who killed his family. So he thinks, and then that's when the story starts to unravel.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the this is a video game.
Yes,
there's a lot of allusions to the video game. You start off in the training sequence, and then you just build your way. You move from one mini boss to the next until you get to the big boss, and the big boss kind of is the big twist at the end. I actually like this movie, and I think, no, look, this movie is about violence. This movie is about the action. This movie is about seeing people kick ass, dismember people, shoot guns, and just kind of have some fun with it. There's a lot of humor in this movie, and that's what I appreciated about it. It is, it's not the most grotesque movie you'll ever see, but there's a lot of blood.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of just insane kills in this one. And that's what you get, and you have this really interesting cast. I'll just mention that this premiered at Toronto, and I interviewed the director Moritz Moore and the producer on the Film Thread interview channel. It's there now. You can watch it. And we talked a lot about just the making of this movie. The movie was also produced by Sam Raimi.
Oh, nice.
And he kind of came on. He was, you look for names to help get your movie made, and Sam Raimi was definitely one of those. And there is a story here, and if you listen to that interview, you'll see that Sam Raimi's main focus of this movie was that story of Boy, played by Bill Skarsgård, and his journey of revenge, and the different twists and turns and paths that he has to walk down. This cadre of the Vander Koy family, they're very different. They're not the villains you're used to, and the way he dispatches them is very interesting. He also has two teammates played by Isaiah Mustafa. Sorry, let me grab the right thing here.
And Andrew Koji?
Yeah, Andrew Koji. Okay, so Isaiah Mustafa plays Bunny, and Andrew Koji plays Basho. First of all, Andrew Koji is unrecognizable in this movie.
Yeah.
I remember watching it thinking to myself, this guy reminds me a lot of Andrew Koji, but it's not him. And then you find out it is him. There's movies like this exist because it's just basically a set piece for action. And I brought that up with the director, and he says, you're not exactly wrong. But it's the world they build around it to make this movie feel unique and very different from every other action film. And at that point, it becomes a matter of taste. And it sounded like for you, this movie was a matter of taste.
No, I'm not saying I hated it. Like I said, I was kind of mixed on it. Like there were things I really enjoyed about the film, and here's the thing. I mean, I'm more on the side of liking it than not liking it. I feel like there were some scenes that dragged a little bit, but and obviously, like you said, the story. If you're going in for some Oscar-winning story, you're not going to get that. I mean, it's definitely a genre film. It's an exploitation film. Like basically, you're going to see him kill people in very creative and crazy ways, right? So, and that's what they gave you, right? That like the trailer doesn't lie about what this movie is. Unlike Challengers, like Boy Kills World is very upfront about what it is, and it stays on that path through the whole film.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there were some scenes that lulled a little bit for me, and I was just kind of like, okay, like let's kind of wrap this up because it's going on a little bit too long.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the action, and in terms of, did it feel unique to you at some point?
At this point, man, in my life and just all the movies I've seen, I wouldn't say that, there were some scenes that were kind of cool. I mean, as far as like, that's a crazy way to kill somebody. But here's the thing, but they were all like the scenes and the way this movie was shot, just the action was top notch. I mean, it was some of the best action scenes I've seen in a film, in a action film in a long time. I think Bill Skarsgård, man, he did a great job. He sold it. He sold the pain he was in when he would get messed up, and the fact that he's a mute in the film and can't talk, like his face sells everything, right? Yeah. So I thought Skarsgård did a great job, and I'm a big fan of his. I like all of his other films. So he was the draw for me for this movie.
Yeah, he's mute and deaf, and that's really played out with his relationship with the Isaiah Mustafa character.
Yeah,
that was amazing. I will say there are, to me, there were a lot of standout performances. We could, with Bill Skarsgård, we talked about the fact that he made this. He was looking into doing this movie while doing John Wick 4. And if you remember his role in John Wick 4, there wasn't much action that he did in that movie. And they talked about that this was kind of his wanting to become an action hero, and that he put on the weight, he did the training, and this is his first foray into an action movie. And it's pretty incredible considering that this is his first. The director talked about the fact that they had to kind of look at him and figure out what his fighting style would be. Considering he's not exactly the most bulky guy in the world,
No, but he looks good in the film, man. He's pretty ripped up. I mean,
Yeah.
like he definitely has that like slender, more like Bruce Lee kind of muscle build, you know.
Mhm. And then and then they built the action around that. There's a pretty there's the battle that takes place on TV against the sponsor, the breakfast cereal sponsor, and the
Right.
very and not to keep going back on this interview, but I will. But yeah, there was very much an intent that each set piece had to feel different, had to feel unique, had to say something about the story, and had to progress along the way. And so a lot of thought. And so when you get to that scene where they're battling the characters from the breakfast cereal, um, they it takes on a very whimsical tone, while at other points there's fights that signify desperation, the desperation to survive. And
Right.
And so there's a lot of intention with it. And the reason I bring this up and highlight this is you compare that to Disney Star Wars and Ahsoka and the upcoming Acolyte, and you look at these fight sequences and you feel like that they exist only to make pretty pictures, to make action look beautiful and
You mean the dancing with light swords?
yes, exactly.
That, yeah.
Yeah, and even Echo was the same way. It was just hey, let's do a fight that features this. And so they do the Echo versus Daredevil fight. And it didn't feel like an Echo versus Daredevil fight. It just felt like fight choreography.
Yeah.
This is one of those movies that just kind of grabs you and says, "Hey, come along for the ride. This is a roller coaster ride." And yes, we put a story behind it, but you're here for the action.
Well, I mean, just the scene at the end alone with the fight, the big fight.
Yeah.
Between him and the other guy. I'm
Yeah.
not, again, no spoilers. Between, but you like that scene, though, like that whole fight scene was probably one of the best I've seen in probably in a long time, like in years. Like that was a great fight scene. Like that was like as it was choreographed, but I mean, it felt real, man. Like just the injuries that came along with that fight. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
It seemed legit. So like for me, like that scene alone is worth me recommending people go watch the film.
Yeah. I mean, the fights themselves are part of the story, and the way they're fought, the way they're choreographed. It's not haphazard in any way. And that's what sadly Disney Star Wars feels like. What Marvel is starting to feel like is that no one knows how to tell a story anymore with in fighting.
Okay, but the question goes, like, obviously this was a hard R movie, right? Very hard R.
Yeah.
Hard R. Oh, I got a video about hard R coming up, so keep your eye out for that. But it was a very hard R, where Disney is PG-13 at best, right? So is it fair to say that Disney can't go there the way other films would go there because of the fact that Disney has to keep it at a certain rating, where these other films don't have to do that?
Well, I mean, with Deadpool and Wolverine, let's just say I'm looking forward to Deadpool and Wolverine, but the violence there, the over-the-top violence, is comedic. And heaven forbid that Marvel goes the direction that they did with Guardians of the Galaxy and take the success that will probably be Deadpool and Wolverine and bring it to the MCU and say, okay, this is how, because let's just say that phases 5 and 6 or 4 and 5 of the MCU comes out of the Guardians of the Galaxy playbook, where everything has to be a comedy, everything has to be a joke, nothing can ever be serious ever again. Right. And now are we going to go to hyper realized violence and swearing and is that the new direction that Marvel's going to take, because they want to recapture the success that will probably be Deadpool and Wolverine?
Well, it depends on how desperate Disney gets.
Yeah. All right.
And we're kind of already seeing it right now with X-Men 97. I mean, they're cursing, people are dying, I mean, so maybe Disney's ready for that switch.
Yeah. I mean, I was very surprised. Danica and I talked about this on Wednesday about the future of Marvel, but very surprised with how how, let's just say that Wolverine, the X-Men 97 didn't exactly follow the playbook that Disney has been following. There are elements of it, definitely, but they're not following that playbook.
No, they're not. And honestly, maybe for the better, because
Uh,
X-Men 97 is a pretty good show.
all right, let's get to your comments here. Starting from Mike, you dropped this a long time ago. Boy Kills World is surprisingly decent. Didn't love it, but the action is much better directed than Monkey Man. Hi Goober. What's your comparison to Monkey Man here?
I think for me it's more of the, I don't know, man. Like I feel like there was parts of Monkey Man for me that felt a little forced. Like it just it didn't feel as natural as I wanted it to. It felt kind of contrived in a lot of ways, but I think as far as an enjoyable watch goes, Boy Kills World is a much more enjoyable watch than Monkey Man.
Okay. Yeah, to me, Monkey Man. Okay, so Boy Kills World is a roller coaster, ups and downs, loops. And
Yeah.
loops. Monkey Man was one giant loop, one giant hill in the beginning, and then a straight path, and then at the end another giant hill. It was the energy of the movie dropped right in the middle of it, and that was the tough part. And add to the fact that I quite frankly couldn't understand a third of the dialogue. It is very difficult for me to really embrace Monkey Man.
Right.
Okay. From Keith Mitchell 112. By the way, thanks to the 1,300 people who are watching us on YouTube and Rumble. Hit that like button, please. Keep commenting. Follow us. Join the chat. From Keith Mitchell 112, is Boy Kills World a sequel to Boy Meets World? I will say from what I've read that there's inspiration from Boy Meets World.
See, I missed this, so you have to explain this, man, because I didn't see any connection or correlation between.
I think it was the name, basically.
Okay, because I'm like, wait a minute.
Because I didn't read the article fully to be able to be an authority on this, but I think Moritz Moore is from Germany. This is a German production. And there's something about the translation of Boy Meets World into German that kind of inspired this one. I gotta read the article, but yeah, Boy Meets World. There is a connection there, very loose one. Looks like Cobra Kai meets Kill Bill. Yeah, I mean, there's Boy. Here, let me go back to Daniel T. Boy Kills World, violence for the sake of violence. I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
this is an action movie,
but it doesn't pretend to be anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's the like a good action movie, you have that protagonist, the boy, and you follow his journey, and the journey gets harder and harder and more difficult as time passes.
God, that was his name, wasn't it? He was the boy. Like that was the.
Yeah, because if you named him, you would spoil the movie.
Right. Oh,
right.
Yeah, you're right.
From Goober, Boy Kills World is a big bucket of almost. The action was way too close to the camera. No real characters to follow or revere. The old guy from the Raid 2 were extra marks. All right. Yeah. I mean, it is a matter of taste. All right. Brock Samsonite. I feel like this movie delivers the action Bill Skarsgård promised in John Wick 4, but never got because it was just a duel at the end. Yeah. I mean, we talked a little bit about that, and he did bulk up and prepare for this movie. This was his attempt to become an action star, and we'll see how The Crow does. Which, ironically, they showed the trailer for The Crow before this one.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, there was also another movie. Let me grab it here real quick.
Yeah, I really like Skarsgård, man. So for me, like, I'm not gonna shit on The Crow until I actually watch it. Like, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because I like the actor a lot.
Yeah. I'll say the same just because that's my job. I have
but the trailer is not promising. I will say that.
Yeah. Also, during the trailer, I don't know. Did you see the trailer for The Dead Don't Die with Viggo Mortensen?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, they played it in mine. We're quoted in the trailer of The Dead Don't Die. Just there we go. From CD Stein 69, is it a surprise that I'm more interested in seeing this one that Skarsgård is in than the new Crow? Yeah, definitely, I would definitely say see this one, and we'll see what happens with the Crow. You know,
Yeah, I mean, we can't speak on the Crow yet.
yeah, Big Black Dog. Does anyone say fatality? There,
Actually, kind of.
yeah, there are, yeah, there are things there. Aaron Taylor, kid grows up to be Pennywise the Crow. That could actually happen. Patrick Miller, shaky cam.
A little bit.
Yes, a little bit. I don't know, a little bit. I think there's a lot, but there's a lot of fixed camera as well. You know, I think, yeah, but I think you're right. Mostly shaky.
There was actually more shaky cam in Challengers than Boy Kills World. So
absolutely. All right, Spidey Sensei 72. Is this like Monkey Man with a white guy as the lead?
no,
Yes, yeah. More action, definitely more action. Vimeo from Vims. His brother have done action and it works. Yeah. Of course, there's Alexander. Well, it is produced by Disney. Disney isn't going to make Boy Kills World. They probably will now. From Mike MC Wong, the stunt double of Jessica Roth is good too. She played.
Was she the girl?
Yeah, I think she was the youngest sister in the family. Is that right?
That got massacred. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe cast Bill as the new Cyclops.
Oh, she was in Happy Death Day, and yeah. Okay.
Okay, but what do you think of Bill Skarsgård as Cyclops?
I don't see it.
Can he play brooding and?
I wouldn't buy it.
All right, for Brock Samsonite, I was hoping this was the continuation of Corey Matthews' story about Topanga finally divorcing him, and he went all postal on the entire cast. Yeah, there you go. That could be a good movie.
That's a good movie, actually.
And Fred Evo 9, I think that's what we're going for here. Googled the name of the movie and read the synopsis. First result page is filled with negative mainstream reviews. Must be a good one then. Let's take a look real quick at Boy Kills World. And we will see. Okay. Let me pull it up here. So Boy Kills World is at 63%. 60%. Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes, 60% from the audience. The consensus is bolstered by Bill Skarsgård's all-in performance. Boy Kills World may offer just enough action thrills to offset the thinly written characters and predictable plot. Thinly veiled characters and predictable plot. Does that resonate with you at all?
Look, the movie doesn't pretend to be anything other than what it is. I mean, it's a revenge movie, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how complicated is a revenge movie?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you killed my family. Guess what? I'm going to grow up. I'm going to train, and I'm going to go kill you. I mean, that's a pretty simple story. It's not.
Yeah,
it's not meant to be complicated.
I know. For Mr. Chickle Trunk for Two Canadians. So, did you like Boy Kills World? I like Boy Kills World. I saw it back in Toronto. Gave it 8.5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely more on the side of liking it. Like I said, I was a little mixed, but more on the side of liking it. You know, the little issues I had were just small.
Yeah. So here's the big question, and then we'll move on to our guest. 63% on Rotten Tomatoes. So it's fresh. It's not certified fresh, compared to the 93 or the 90% on Challenger.
But we know why Challenger's got that high score, man. I mean, we got to be real here. We got to be honest. There's a lot of critics, quote unquote, in the industry. I mean, because was that 90% critic score or audience score?
That's critic score.
Of course. So, like I was saying, there's a lot of critics in the industry who are very much pro agenda on that, and they're going to give it a good. Again, they went out of their way to make the guy calling the match game. Mm-hmm. Like, they went out of their way to show that he was, even though all he did was sit on that chair watching the tennis match. They found a way to make sure you knew he was gay, and it's like, so there's a group in Hollywood that's going to constantly give movies like this a good review.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it is what it is.
I don't know. To me, it's like for some reason, I think people are just attracted to dark stories, and that was a very dark story. Very unlikable people, and I don't know. This is definitely a dark story as well. Boy Kills World, and I don't know. I have to think about that one longer, but the discrepancy in the tomato score is very interesting to me, and I'd like to just kind of
Dude, 97%. That's for that movie. There's some BS going on, man. Like, there's no way that movie gets a 97%.
Yeah. All right.
Well, what was the audience score? Was there an audience score
For challengers? Let's take a look.
challengers?
I don't know that they posted it yet. Challenges, although it did come out on Monday early, but no, there's no audience score yet.
Mm.
Yeah,
Of course not.
Or at least they're not posting it. Yeah, they'll do it. Yeah, we'll see. All right, let's pivot here. We got a special guest with a documentary we're going to talk about, and let's do this. All right, we have a special guest with us about his film, Scooter LaForge, Life of Art. It's out on VOD now, I believe. Let's introduce Ethan Minsker. Hey, Ethan, how are you doing?
Good. How are you, Alan?
Oh, very-
And it's Dante, right?
Yes. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you both.
All right. Well, we've got some things to talk about. First is your film, and then we're going to talk about another film you're working on. But let's talk about Scooter LaForge, Life of Art. Tell us the story about that, or what is it about?
So it's a documentary about a Lower East Side artist, Scooter LaForge, who is known in both art as a painter and also creating original one-of-a-kind bespoke fashion. So his fashion has been very popular with like sells through Patricia Fields. Beyonce wears it. Justin Timberlake wears him. The Go-Go's, a lot of people from the Go-Go's. Blondie, it was like their official tour shirt. So very popular with a lot of like punk rock and pop culture musicians and stuff like that, as well as like his visual art and his painting has done a lot in the galleries and does pretty well at the art fairs and stuff like that. So I basically followed him around for 5 years and documented what was going on starting in 2019. And I even shot a little added stuff before the distributor took it in November. So I continuously updated the visuals. But it's a story about a queer artist and his artwork and how he survives and adjusts to what is happening currently. So we go through his life story, and then it gets up to date when COVID happens and how he pivots and survives through that. So it's like an inspirational story for people who love art and artists themselves. It gives a lot of helpful information out there. And and it's a very experimental in the way that I make the films, with a lot of animation and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, the animation, your style is very much in this film, and it blends well with Scooter's style. And the question I have is, how did the film come about? I know you've had a friendship with him in the past, probably a working relationship, it sounded like. What was it about his story that you wanted to make it into a documentary?
So I made a documentary before this called Man in Camo, right? Camouflage, which got nominated for an award at Award This,
yes,
which is where I met Dante and I believe Alan briefly, very quickly there. I made that film as like kind of a test pilot, a prototype of what I wanted to push stylistically, where it's a whole documentary about my art process. And at the same time, I had a lot of people within the art community were like, you got to meet this guy, Scooter. You're really going to like his work. Like, you guys are very similar. You're going to love each other. You should meet. And I kept being resistant. Like, I don't want to meet this guy, like, because everybody keeps pushing him on me. We show in the same galleries. We're all in the same community. And then finally, I started seeing his work and I'm like, oh, I actually like his work. His work is a lot to do with like, sort of like cartoon and this sort of crazy kind of mix of art. This is a water tower I made that he painted. And I began to really like his work. And then I met him and our personalities worked well together. I'm very like kind of aggro, like aggressive, like ready to fight. And he's very Valium, calm, and calms me down. So we complement each other in the personality wise. And I give the example that in the film, it talks about him being bullied. And this isn't in the film, but later in life, he had these same bullies reach out to him and, were asking for advice because it turned out their children were going to art school, and Scooter was very nice about it. Mm-hmm. Where I, on the other hand, when I was bullied, I later in life hunted down a lot of my bullies and beat them up. I mean, it wasn't like a pleasant experience for them. So we have totally two different ways, but I think his way is the more stronger. It's a lot harder to embrace and show love. So I try to take his lessons in life and, incorporate that into myself. But he basically has, if you search Scooter LaForge, he's covered in he's been on MTV, he's on like lots of videos. And I approached him and said I would like to make a short film. And then I just kept filming, and it kept getting longer and longer until it turned into a feature.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I'm maybe a couple years older than Scooter, but
well, how old are you?
I'm 56.
Okay, yeah, we're both. Me and him are both 54.
Okay, but the thing is, for him, being a gay man, knowing it very early on in life, I believe he said it was junior high, but to follow his life, to me, felt like it followed a lot of the history of the gay community throughout the 80s and 90s. And it reminded me a lot about, when I look at where we're at today, and then going back to the 80s and, seeing, the AIDS epidemic, and seeing gay men just dying at the high numbers of deaths during the AIDS crisis. And to kind of see, it just reminds me of the struggle it was being a gay man back in those days, back in the 80s and 90s. And I felt like his, watching the entire movie just felt like it was a history of that period in our lives.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like in the cast in the film, there's actually a couple people who are, HIV positive currently, but in today's world, it's like this younger generation doesn't really get the fear that installed. Like now it's like, oh, AIDS is like so commonplace that people can take the medication and it's not a death sentence anymore. So he kind of like brings up this thing of how like fearful people were in that time period. I mean, I grew up terrified of it too. Mm-hmm. So, and it's an interesting story that he was always very careful with that. So he heeded the advice, and being careful, definitely helped that he is, safe and sound and all of that. But yeah, the film covers all of that sort of history. And I tried to make it that there were historical points throughout the movie. So he covers the AIDS crisis, even though he was kind of there in the 90s on the tail end of it. And then, we get to things like the George Floyd murder and how that affected the art scene in New York and COVID and all of that. And I get because the film isn't, it's not that far from that time period, that people are like, oh, obviously we know all of this, but I keep explaining to people, it's like this movie hopefully will last, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, and people will be able to look at those points historically. And without those references in the film, you might be a little bit lost. So it's a weird thing as a filmmaker to be like, okay, we're telling this film now, but we have to be conscious of the people in the future and how they will approach it. So the AIDS part is a little bit in there that, going backwards, that, the fear of AIDS and what a death sentence that meant, and activism around that, which is, sort of lacking now. A lot of that activism really did push a lot of, things within that community and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean,
that's a really good point, because I think, when we sit in the here and now, it's easy to look at things and be like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Right. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people didn't even now didn't realize what a death sentence AIDS was back in those days. Like if you had HIV, you were dead. You were like there was no pills, there was no cocktails. You were just gone. And to have that portrayed in the film, I think is important for people to see that, yeah, this is how far we've come from that, right? Just like maybe 20 years from now, we'll see how, the racial craziness that's been going on lately, like how far we're removed from that part. You know what I mean? So like the whole George Floyd thing and just the circus around that. And for the people who lived in those areas, what was it like? And for the people who are trying to make art, what was it like for them during the crazy time of now,
Yeah, also it's like I live in New York and I live in Union Square, and I try to explain this to people that, they're like, oh, the protests. And I'm like, it's like weather here. There's a protest every season. Every season there's a protest and riots. I've been here since '88. So
right.
I've seen countless riots. So if I show footage of something, like, you have to have the context. This is what this related to in this season. So, I'm prepared for the riots coming, whatever protests going on, they're happening around me. And, I teach at FIT. Our school is dealing with protests currently in the building I teach in. So, but yeah, you need historical markers. And I try to do that for all the films. So even in Man in Camo, I shot footage of September 11th, and I try to place that marker and how it affects you creatively as an artist. And so all the films I want to have markers, because in a way it's like, I don't make money on these films. I go broke making these. It's like a yearbook for myself. Like, here is the environment. This is what I look like. These are the people I hung out with at that time period. So
as Chris says, you don't have a butler.
The what?
Chris says, so you documentarian, so you don't have a butler, or you had to fire your butler recently.
Yeah, I work, I did 11 years of episodic promos for MTV and VH1, and that's
wow.
Funny is so, like, I'm one of those filmmakers that works hard to fund the next part of filming, but I do not have like any kind of support other than that.
So let's get into the secret sauce. You probably have already answered it, but what is the approach when it comes to making an art documentary, outside of just telling the story of the artist and showing his work or her work or their work? What is your approach to creating an art documentary?
First off, I watch a lot of art documentaries, and the formula drives me nuts. In any independent film, the formulas drive me nuts. So I strive to, first off, tell a unique story in a way that the audience isn't really, going to predict. And I think that's kind of the thing I want to go for whether it's a documentary narrative or anything. Secondly, I want it to have very stylistic, that somebody can watch it and say, that's definitely an Ethan Minsker film. You're going to have a lot of animation. You're going to have very, things that make you laugh, things that make you cry. So wait, I lost the question there. What is
the approach to creating an art documentary?
So for me, there's things like in the film, there's a thing going on currently in this neighborhood where old artists die and then their stuff is thrown into the trash and forgotten about. And so for me, as someone who makes art and creates stuff, see, there's little pieces of art right here I make, who makes stuff and create, it's like, this is a bigger question that a lot of artists personally want to know. And people who are interested in art never really think about is what happens when you die. You make art because you think like it's going to be this gravestone and a marker that people can reference. But the reality is, typically when you die, it's just thrown in the trash. So that's a kind of question I would ask Scooter, and he addresses in the film. And most art documentaries I watch are made by people outside of that are filmmakers directing the question, where I'm an artist and a filmmaker. So I want to point questions that I want to know and that I wish were asked in these other art documentaries. And I also want to break the formulaic thing that you see within documentaries and all of that. So I try to do this, what do you call it? Like a natural progression of a film. I don't really list out the way it's going to go. I ask the questions form the next part of it. And I continuously go based on the part of the film that I've already captured and edited. if that makes sense. So kind of like how Scooter in the very beginning of the film believes in automatism, in this concept of like, let things develop naturally. I like that to happen in all of the films that I make, which makes it less predictable.
So does the animation come later, much later in the process, or are you just kind of thinking about it throughout, or do you have a plan beforehand?
I sometimes will. So every bit I animate takes about 2 to 3 months to do like a 10-second thing that I have to engineer and make, and I handcraft everything. It's no computer graphics. It's all handmade. Sometimes I do all this work and animate it, and then I'm editing it and then go like, oh, that was a waste of time, and I cut it out. So I wish I was thinking more ahead like you, like wait till the film's done. And people within that help me on the films are like, you should really wait till the film is more locked picture before you edit, but I mean, before you animate. But the problem is if I did that, that would be like shut down production for another 2 years just to add all the animation. So I kind of have to animate as I go along to make the film progress faster. So, you know, like if I'm shoot an interview, there might be 2 weeks between the next interview or maybe a month. So I'm editing all that footage and then I'm also animating to that. But yeah, some of the animation I end up losing because it kill your darlings, as they say.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got some questions in the chat, and let's go through those, and then we'll talk about a current project you're working on.
Right.
Mr. Tickle Trunk, what a fantastic suit! Yes, I remember you brought that to award this as well.
Yes, and inside of it has I'm packing a gun inside there. That's the secret protagonist movement, the art movement I used to be a part of. Yeah, this was a fabric I got from Moods fabric store. I brought it to Thailand and they made it within like 2 days. This is my second camo suit. This is my Superman to Clark Kent. So every time I do an art event in New York or anything creative, I wear the camo suit so it connects to all the art projects and films. And then when I don't want to be recognized, I just look like a scrub in my t-shirt, as you saw earlier in the morning when I was testing the video and all.
Showed up 2 hours early. All right. From the nerd far away, that is quite a blazer, Mr. LaForge. Well, Mr. Minsker.
I'm Mr. Minsker. LaForge is the star of my film.
In your opinion, what in your opinion kills creativity and decreases the value of art?
Oh, that's money. The moment you throw money into there, it kills and all of that. Luckily, I'm not in that position because I have no money and I work very hard and I'm self-funded. But every project where I've worked on where it's self-funded, I mean, you know, has more of a funding and more of a budget, then you have the layers of approval. You know, even when I worked for, you know, the broadcasting thing, you would have level after level of approval and you would see how the creativity and the genius of what you were doing was being stripped away for other concerns, which are legitimate, like, you know, how it plays to a wider audience, how it's going to impact like the money and the downline and all that. I'm lucky that I don't have to worry about any of that. But yeah, money is a major factor.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you're no longer starving, that's when it goes downhill.
Which every creative is wishing for. Yeah. So.
I'll bring up Thomas Kincaid, but then I won't. From Rumble, ADLS24. How does New York City street art influence Scooter's style? How did it?
I mean, he does do some street art, like he's done wheat pasting and he paints murals and stuff like that. I do a lot more like wheat pasting, and I actually the water towers that I show, I paint my own and I put those up around the city too. I glue them high up on the you know, the pull down gates and stuff. So I think it's another way of finding an audience. And when you're a creator, you have to go every possible way to find an audience. So yeah, for the viewers out there, you can find me on Instagram, Ethan Minsker, and see all my personal art. But yeah, no, street art is just another link in the description. Say that again.
Oh yeah. So we'll put a link in the description for your site.
So it's just Ethan Minsker at on Instagram.
Ethan Minsker at Instagram, or you could go to ethanminsker.com. That's my personal art. But Scooter LaForge, you could just do a regular search and there'll be tons of images of his stuff. But yeah,
He's-
I personally think that street art impacts what you do because it allows you to bring in a new audience, and it's a completely very, very different audience than what you get in galleries.
Yes. All right. Also from Rumble, ADLS. After the passing of Basquiat and Herring, was it artists like Scooter who filled the void in the New York art scene?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, historically, like Patricia Fields, who's one of the people in the films, she was one of the first people to both highlight Basquiat and Herring in her personal gallery. So the fact that she now kind of anoints favor onto Scooter and, you know, highlights his work and sells his work is kind of the passing of the torch from, you know, Basquiat and Herring, which were mostly started out as street artists. So you get the history right before they started going into the galleries and selling for tons of money. Where Scooter is more like, you know, doing clothing in that same thing that you see out and about, and more of the galleries, but less of the street art. So yeah, it's very similar in themes and storylines, and I do cover both of those artists in the film that leads into Scooter. So there is connections to that.
All right. Also, ADL has asked, does the film cover Scooter's struggling artist phase before working with celebrities and walking red carpets?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the unavoidable thing from all of the art films, you know, documentaries, is you have to have the struggles of that. So he talks about being bullied and this concept of how you actually make it as an artist, which he would say is like, you know, don't be afraid to do your art in front of people and take every opportunity and exploit it. You know, he even does a lot of work that's free, you know, when the opportunities show up, because it does lead to other work. So these are other things that I learned from him. So like, imagine during the riots and the glass windows were smashed out all over New York City and they put up wood boards. He was one of those artists that would go do these beautiful murals on the streets of New York for free. And the funny part is that some of those stores then took down those murals, right? And then sold his work. So they took down the plywood and then they sold it, you know, and didn't give him any of the money. It's like, dude, you don't, like, I did the artwork. That doesn't mean you technically own the art. So there's this whole battle been going on with one of these stores that, yeah, he had a beautiful mural. He took it down and they took it down to sell to make money for the store and gave him nothing. So there's that too. But
I mean, is there a lawsuit around that, or is there, or they just?
I doubt. I mean, I didn't ask, but I doubt. I think it's just like bad, you know.
Yeah.
For like, you know, New York City, whether it's artist and whatever downtown, we're like a community. So whether you're a small business or you're an artist, you're usually linked. So it's bad blood within the neighborhood to do that because it spreads like wildfire. It's like, it was like a soap store on Bowery, you know. And I think it's one of the things I covered in the film. So yeah, it's not smart if you want to have a longevity in a community like this with not alienating, you know, a big section of the downtown scene.
All right. Aaron Taylor, the response to Magic Johnson's diagnosis is the strongest story that highlights the societal fears of, sorry, I was reading the bigger version. Societal fears caused by HIV/AIDS. Like Dante said, people saw it as a death sentence. Yeah, I remember Magic Johnson's announcement that he had AIDS and thinking, you know, that was kind of the big tragedy at the time, but also it was the start of AZT and how he was able to, you know, it was the start that of medication that was being made available to those with HIV at the time.
But also the reason why that was kind of important too, really quickly, is, you know, even though AIDS was, you know, around and you heard about it, you know, everywhere on the news and everything, it still never really reached the hood. You know what I mean? Like, AIDS was still kind of like, oh, that's something white people have to deal with. You know what I mean? Like, but when Magic Johnson was diagnosed with that, man, that's when Black people took notice of AIDS and HIV, and it became a thing because it was like, oh shit, we can catch this, and if he can get it, then all of us can get it. So that was actually a really big deal that Magic Johnson, you know, was diagnosed with that, and I kind of wished, you know, in movies and documentaries about stuff like this, like they would talk about that, because that was a big turning point for the Black community when it came to HIV and AIDS and that epidemic.
I mean, I grew up in DC, so I think maybe that I have a different perspective that, you know, I was in the 80s, I had friends who died of AIDS who were of color. But, from the punk rock world where you're sharing, doing heroin and sharing needles, it was related to that.
Mhm.
Not that
Right.
that matters, but so, and in DC, so like that was like kind of assumed that it was across the board of like, it just, whoever you were, if you got it, you were dead. And watching a friend get it, and then, this amazing character of a person, that I wrote about in some other book stuff, that watching him get it and die was a shocker,
Yeah.
especially because he had sex with most of the city. So I don't never know how all those people like dealt with it. But yeah, the more people that, and still like, that come out publicly about it, the more that the stigmatism of it is reduced. But I think by now it's like these kids, it's just like, whatever. It's like, something you get, and it seems more.
It's almost like catching the flu now. It's like, I take a couple of pills and I should be okay.
Yeah, you got to do that for the rest of your life. But at the same time, you could literally eliminate in a generation.
Yeah, but I take Lipitor already for the rest of my life. So
yeah. I mean, I take blood pressure medicine I have to take for the rest of my life. So I mean, it's like whatever. Yeah. It is what it is.
All right. We can talk about Big Pharma anytime. Jimmy Francis, what artists? This is the big question. What artists do you consider the greatest and most influential on your work?
I mean, like if you watch my films, you would definitely see Pee-wee's Playhouse, because I do a lot of masks and all of this. You can see in Man in Camo and Scooter, and then the next film. There's Kenneth Anger. Some of his stuff really influenced me, especially the very fast editing stuff. The Great Rock and Roll Swindle, like I watched that as a kid. The documentary, it's sort of fake, sort of real documentary about Sex Pistols, which has a lot of animation and weird parts blended into it. Found that really compelling. So kind of like, and that fiction of what MTV promised, like, I'm from that thing of like MTV is going to be this crazy footage thing, and you're going to be totally like completely like blown away all the time, and it really never delivered. So I'm always trying to make a film where you're like watching it being like, whoa, there's like crazy animation being thrown at you constantly and being entertained by that. So that's my goal. I never feel like I do my best to reach that. But yeah, those are the films and artists that really influenced me, especially within the film world side of it.
All right, last question. Brock Samsonite, is there a museum or gallery that exclusively features Scooter's work? And if so, where is it? I'm interested in checking it out. And also, how can we see your documentary? How can we see Scooter LaForge, Art of Life?
Yeah, I say like there's a big gallery here called Hal Happening Gallery. If you just search Hal Happening, you'll find it. They have a lot of his work. Also, Patricia Fields, you can buy artwork and clothing. And the clothing is affordable. That's usually like $60 and up, whereas paintings can go for $10,000 and up at this point. So you could buy a Scooter LaForge original hand painted by him for an affordable price.
Oh, wow.
You can get for $5 at Artomat. The film you can see on Amazon, you can see it on Google Play, and you can see it on YouTube Movies. And I think after a little while, it will expand to other things like iTunes. But right now, Amazon, Google Play, YouTube Movies. And it's from the distributor, Indie Rights. Having a really good time with Indie Rights. Shout out to Linda out there. Really appreciate the work that they're all doing to support independent film, just like Film Threat has been doing for more than 30 years. I definitely know all about that.
Yeah, well, talk about a segue. Let's talk about your next project.
I
assume it's your next project or your current project. But you are helping us out with the film set. Film
it's right
threat
over your shoulder. It's right behind you.
The film sex threat. The Film Threat Sucks documentary.
To clarify, I did not come up with that title. That's a Chris Gore title.
That title's been in play for decades.
Yeah. So the story of this film is that I made this movie, Man in Camo. It was well rated and reviewed by Film Threat. Then the pandemic hit. And then I get a side message from Chris dropping into my DMs, as the kids say, hey, I have a film I've been working on that's very similar to your story, that I would, be interested in talking to you about. And since I wasn't doing anything, I was like, well, I'll look at the footage and at least I'll do, like, I call it a slop cut, but it's like an assemble cut. You like kind of put everything in timeline so it can be easily looked at. And he sent me this big ass drive with more stuff than I imagined. And I started slowly cutting it together. Then it's like the stories start revealing from Chris. Chris has a habit of holding some stuff back. And when I'm like, wow, there's a lot of footage. It looks like you shot a lot of stuff. Oh, yeah, we had 2 filmmakers shoot 20 of these interviews, which include Todd Phillips and Larry Kaczynski and Chris Pernowski from Titmouse and a lot of other great people. I was like, well, that's interesting. 2 other filmmakers. And then, oh, yeah, but then there was another filmmaker, the Duplass brothers, shot a good section of interviews with him. So I'm inheriting this as the third pass. And then I shot more stuff. I interviewed people. I did my animation stuff. So we have a pretty decent rough cut right now. Chris keeps sending it out to people. I'm like, be selective of who you send it out to. Been viewed like almost 400 times privately from filmmakers that Chris is selecting. So I continuously get notes to update it. But at some point, it's got to be like, no more notes. Let's stop. And plus, I want to do more animation to it, actually. I've been holding back some of it. But we got an animator from Titmouse to help do some of the extra puppet animation stuff. So I think it's very entertaining. And it is stylistically like the Scooter film and Man in Camo. So I think we're going to do a Kickstarter, I believe, in May.
Yeah, I believe May 1st is what I'm pretty sure we'll have more information on that. But there will be a Kickstarter. Just the realities of we need some help getting over the finish line. And,
yeah, I mean, I think it's a compelling story, and it matches all the stories that I care about, which is the creative field and how you make something, how you start something as 2 filmmakers in Detroit, students.
Yeah.
Who decide, like, we're not going to just sit in class and watch film, and we love talking about film. We'll make a fanzine, and they make this very basic fanzine that slowly progresses into being a little more glossy. And then Larry Flint Publications decide to make a full magazine out of it, like a legitimate magazine. Me as a filmmaker in the late, early 90s was reading this magazine. So, it was influential in the filmmaker world, like pointing out and highlighting like the cinema transgression here in New York and everything from, Kevin Smith to Tarantino, all of these people before anybody even knew or cared about them. So Film Threat has been a very, very important part of the ecosystem of independent film, not just then, but today as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say I saw a cut like long before even animation was in the discussion, but the whole start of Film Threat, not people don't realize Chris had a partner, and he interviews
Andre Seawood, shout out to him,
and it's just a great story of the 2 of them, and not only creating Film Threat, but what happened after that, and then I'll also say I feel like the stuttering John of the project. I came in to Film Threat way too.
Oh my God, you're the heart of it now. Believe me, you're the center.
Yeah, right now I am.
No, you always are. I continuously watch the thing, and Chris will say that you have like this centering thing.
Alan is literally the backbone of.
Yeah, you pull him off the edge, which he appreciates. It's the same thing with me and Scooter. So, I need that human Valium to keep me in check, and you're kind of, I think, Chris's human value.
Yeah, we all have to be.
Andre Seawood, who was the other creator of the original Film Threat, did music for the Scooter film. So he has a lot of tracks in the Scooter film. Anything that's sort of French, where you hear the singer singing in French, that's Andre Seawood's music.
All right, amazing. Okay, well, hey, thanks for joining us, Ethan. I appreciate you being here. And it was fun to talk about not only the Film Threat Sucks project, but stay tuned for the Kickstarter announcement, but also for Scooter LaForge. Is it Art is Life, right?
Scooter LaForge, Life of Art. there was
of
a
art.
whole thing on that. Like, I wanted to say life in art, and it was a whole debate until we got to life of art, which
Yes.
it's better.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's on VOD
Simple
now.
is the way to go, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks a lot, Scooter. Thanks for joining us.
Ethan.
Oh, sorry. I knew that was going to happen. Ethan.
No, it's
thanks for
fine.
joining
I get
us.
it. Hey, look, you remember Scooter LaForge, A Life of Art. That's all that matters. You can forget Ethan Minsker existed. That's fine. We have another round when the next film comes out. So,
Absolutely. Okay. Thanks a lot.
goodbye, guys.
Bye.
See you then.
All right. Whew. I know. It's like, I have sympathy now for what Chris goes through when running and producing the show. And it's tough. Hey, thanks to everyone. Thanks, Ethan. Cheers. Hail Film Threat. Yes. So like I said, we're coming up to as Kickstarter just to help us get the film over the finish line. It's gonna be a fantastic film. I can guarantee you.
Yeah, and if you like Attack of the Doc, man, you're gonna love this one. So
all right. Couple of things. Thank you to our mods, Lord Thoth, Atomic Lori, and Latino Slant. Hey, Polly. We will be back on Monday talking about Is Hollywood Dying? Monday's going to be a big day. We're starting versus early at 1:00 Pacific. We're going to talk about Is Hollywood Dying? And then after that, I have an interview with LeVar Burton about his Reading Rainbow documentary, and then heading off to see Fall Guy that afternoon. So Monday's going to be a big day. On Wednesday for Hollywood on the Rocks, Paul Chatto is going to join us. We're going to talk about comedies, the state of comedies today. I think no one talks about it on the other channels because there's not a lot of comedies out there. And I really wanted to get into to kind of pick his brain as to the state of comedy today. And then
I just did a video actually with Paul a couple of days ago on Blaxploitation on Coffee with Pam Grier. So keep a lookout for that.
Yeah. Oh, is it out yet or?
Not yet. He's I think he's editing it or something. But yeah, we shot it Wednesday.
Okay, and then Dante, give us your how can we?
Yeah. So tomorrow I'm actually doing my first live show, but it's just an interview really with independent filmmaker Vera Vanguard, and we're going to talk about her projects and what got her into the industry, and we're going to talk about the state of Hollywood and things like that, and because we all kind of run in the same circles, and me and her had a chance to finally hook up a little while ago, and so we keep talking about doing a video with each other. And so tomorrow I'm popping my live show cherry tomorrow, if you will, because I haven't done my own live show yet. So, and this is kind of like a pre-live show. It's not like an official live show, even though it will be live. But yeah, doing that tomorrow, and I will have an official live show coming. I'm trying to wait for Chris to get better because I really want him to be part of my first official live show, because we talked about this forever, and I don't want to do it without him. So obviously with you, Alan, as well, I want you there. I want the whole crew there, to be honest with you. So I'm just kind of waiting for Chris to heal up a little bit. And yeah, catch the show, man. Verbal Riot on YouTube and Rumble. I know I need to show Rumble a lot more love because lately I haven't been, but yeah, Rumble, YouTube, and you can also follow me on X, where I usually get in trouble under Verbal Riot.
Still on X. And so okay, so you got a live stream tomorrow. What time, by the way?
Tomorrow at 2 p.m.
2 p.m.
PST.
Okay. And and one last thing, and no, I didn't forget, but Patrick Lemire is here to remind me today is Ms. P. Coffee's last day.
Oh man,
she's there giving us the middle finger. As she does at every show. Look, I will tell you this: for the last several months that Ms. P. Coffee has been helping, she's been helping us a long time, and things have run smoothly. Today was one of those days where I've got so much to manage and wrangle, and thanks to not only Ms. P. Coffee but also Atomic Lori for helping keep things in reign. We are passing the torch on to Atomic Lori, but huge thank you to Ms. P. Coffee. I tell you this all the time, but you are valuable. You have helped us out a lot, and you will be sorely missed, even though we will see each other in the future as well. Let's see. I can't read this thing. Buy Ms. B Coffee, SP of the North. Buy Ms. B Coffee from Mob 19001. Thank you, Ms. P Coffee. And of course, that's for Brock. Brock, may the force be with you. But Brock says, great stream today. Thank you, Alan, Dante, and the mods. So thank you, Ms. P Coffee, for everything you've done. You'll be missed, but we are in capable hands with Atomic Lori. And she'll be around. Don't worry about it. And no, I won't tell the joke that I've been telling ever since we've been announcing this. So there you go. With that, hey, thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks for all your comments, your support for Film Threat. Chris will be back. Please continue to support us.
We'll be back soon, guys. Very soon.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. I do like talking about movies. I'm as Chris says, this is my time to step up, and I can't wait to step back again. And thanks so much. We will, like I said, we'll be back next week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the live stream. And with that, let's get out of here.